The crime that made detectives doubt everything they knew, the vanishing truth. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button, because what you're about to hear will make you question everything you thought you knew about justice. Detective Michael Danner had been in homicide for 21 years. He'd seen cruelty in every shape: revenge, greed, jealousy, the usual motives that tied killers to their crimes. But the case waiting for him that morning wasn't one of them. It began with a 911 call that sounded routine. A missing person, female, mid-30s, last seen leaving work at a local pharmacy in suburban Portland. But the voice reporting it wasn't routine. It was trembling, detached, almost rehearsed. When Danner arrived at the address, he immediately noticed the small details that didn't fit. The missing woman, Rachel Keene, had left her car keys on the kitchen counter, her phone charging on the table, and her front door slightly open. No sign of a break-in, no struggle, just silence. The kind that makes your skin crawl because it feels placed. Neighbors claimed they'd seen Rachel walking her dog around 8:15 the night before, but no one recalled her coming back. The dog was later found sitting outside her fence gate, leash still clipped, as if waiting for her. As Danner moved deeper into the investigation, everything about Rachel's life screamed normal. A steady job, a modest circle of friends, no criminal record. But the more he looked, the more he realized how little anyone actually knew about her. Her phone history showed a number saved only as M. Dozens of late-night texts, deleted photos, and short voice notes. One message, recovered by forensics, simply read, "If anything happens, it's not what you think." By the third day, the missing person case became a potential homicide. Detectives canvassed the nearby woods and riverbanks, and then something surfaced. A black duffel bag snagged under a bridge. Inside were women's clothes, Rachel's work ID, and a half-burned photograph of a man's face torn down the middle. Danner froze. The photo matched a man he knew well, retired Detective Alan Brooks, his former partner, the man who trained him. Brooks had left the force 2 years ago after a mental breakdown during an unsolved child abduction case. No one had seen him since. Now his name was resurfacing in connection to a woman who had vanished without a trace. When officers went to Brooks's old house, they found it abandoned. Power cut, windows dusted, mailbox overflowing. But in the garage, under a dusty workbench, they discovered a box of evidence labels, old case files, and a series of photographs of Rachel Keene, all taken months before her disappearance. It didn't make sense. She wasn't part of any previous investigation. She wasn't a witness or a suspect in anything. And yet, here she was, trapped in a web that tied her to a man who'd sworn to uphold justice. As Danner stared at the wall of photos, his heart pounded with something he hadn't felt in years. Doubt. Had Brooks gone rogue, or had Rachel uncovered something from his past? Then one of his officers called out, holding an old dust-covered camcorder they found behind the shelf. The tape inside was labeled only, "The Truth They Never Found." Danner pressed play. The screen flickered, static, silence, then the faint outline of a woman tied to a chair, her voice trembling. "Please, just tell them I didn't want this." The detective's blood ran cold. The detective's shadow. Detective Danner couldn't sleep that night. The video replayed in his mind, frame by frame, the dim flicker of the camcorder light, the woman's tearful whisper, the eerie way her eyes seemed to dart towards someone off-screen. The timestamp on the tape was from 4 months before Rachel Keene disappeared, which meant whoever had recorded it had been watching her for a long time, planning something. At 3:12 a.m., Danner drove back to the precinct, unable to wait until morning. He ordered the tech team to enhance the audio. A faint voice could be heard behind Rachel's pleading. Male, low, controlled, almost gentle. "Tell them what you did, Rachel." "I didn't do anything," she sobbed. "Then why were you there that night?" The text looked at Danner, puzzled. "Sir, that voice, it's familiar." He didn't want to say it out loud, but he knew. He recognized the rhythm, the calm authority that used to command a room. It was Alan Brooks, his old partner. Danner's stomach turned. Brooks had been like a brother. They'd worked hundreds of cases side by side, chasing killers through alleys, comforting families, drinking bad coffee in stakeout vans. But the man on that tape wasn't the mentor he remembered. It was someone broken, cold, methodical. The next morning, Danner visited Brooks's old therapist, Dr. Henry Lowell. The man was reluctant at first, citing confidentiality, but when Danner showed him a still image from the tape, the color drained from his face. "I warned them this might happen," Lowell murmured. After the Brighton case, Allen started changing. He became obsessed with patterns, said evil had a language, that he could see it in people's faces. "He told me he could tell who would become a killer, even before they committed a crime." Danner frowned. "You mean he thought Rachel was one of them?" The doctor hesitated. "He said he fee on someone who fit every pattern, a woman. He never said her name, but he called her the beginning of something worse." Later that day, Danner and his team pulled Brooks's last known credit card records. They led to an abandoned farmhouse 40 miles outside the city, a place that hadn't been listed in any property registry. When they arrived, the air smelled of dust and rot. The wooden floorboards creaked beneath their boots. Inside the living room, faded photographs covered the wall. Women, children, couples, all marked with different colored pins. Rachel's photo was in the center, circled in red. Pinned next to her image was a police report from a case dated 2010, the Brighton disappearance. The name at the top read, Detective Alan Brooks. Danner remembered that case vividly. A 6-year-old girl had vanished, and despite months of searching, they'd never found a trace. Brooks had taken it hard, too hard. He'd claimed the department covered up the truth, that someone inside had sabotaged the investigation. Now, standing in that silent farmhouse, Danner realized Brooks had been chasing ghosts ever since. But why Rachel? What did she have to do with a case from 15 years ago? One of the junior officers called out from the basement stairs, "Sir, you need to see this." The smell hit Danner before he reached the bottom. Mildew, chemicals, something metallic. A small table sat under a bare bulb, covered in old cassette tapes, labeled with dates and single names. Sarah, Lydia, Rachel. And in the corner, half covered by a tarp, was a rusted steel cabinet. Inside were printed photos of Rachel from different locations. Grocery stores, parks, her workplace, all taken from a distance. Brooks had been watching her for months, maybe years. But when Danner turned one of the photos over, he froze. Scrawled on the back, in Brooks's familiar handwriting, were the words, "She knows what happened to Emily." Emily, the missing girl from the Brighton case. The revelation hit like a thunderclap. If Brooks was right, Rachel had somehow been connected to the crime that destroyed his career. But before Danner could process it, one of the officers called out, voice trembling, "Sir, the back door's open." Danner spun around. The night wind rushed in, cold and sharp, and on the windowsill, lit by a slice of moonlight, sat a fresh Polaroid. It was Rachel. Taken within the last 24 hours, the man in the mirror. Detective Danner's hand trembled as he held the Polaroid. The edges were still warm, freshly printed. Rachel was alive, but the timestamp on the back, written in thick black ink, made his pulse stop cold. Taken tonight, 11:47 p.m. It was 11:52. That meant whoever took it was watching them right now. "Lights out!" Danner barked. Officers killed the flashlights and dropped to cover. The farmhouse fell into blackness. Outside, the night hummed with wind and crickets. No movement, no sound, just the heavy silence of being hunted. Danner's instincts screamed. Whoever this was, it wasn't just Brooks anymore. Something else was unfolding, something that didn't make sense. They swept the property, clearing every corner, every field. Nothing. Whoever had been there was gone, leaving behind only the lingering smell of smoke, and that Polaroid now burning in Danner's hand like a warning. Back at headquarters, Danner sat alone in the evidence room, staring at the wall of Rachel's photos. He couldn't shake the feeling that every detail was wrong. Rachel, the missing woman, the connection to Emily, all of it felt staged, like someone had been rewriting the truth. Then his phone buzzed, a restricted number. He hesitated, then answered. A familiar voice whispered, "You never learned to listen, Mike." His heart stopped. "Alan, she tried to tell me the truth. You buried it, just like they buried Emily." The line went dead. The next morning, Danner traced the call. It had come from inside the old police archive, a section sealed off for years after a fire. He grabbed his gun, flashlight, and badge, then drove out alone. Inside, dust floated through beams of light breaking from the boarded windows. Files stacked in uneven piles covered the floor. The faint hum of an old tape player echoed from somewhere deeper inside. Following the sound, Danner reached the far end of the archive. A small TV screen flickered on its own, showing static. Then an image appeared. Rachel again, sitting under that same interrogation light. "Detective Danner," she said softly, her voice shaking. "You think he's the monster, but you never asked what made him one." Danner stepped closer. "What are you talking about?" he whispered, though she wasn't there. The tape cut to a new scene. A different room, younger faces. Brooks and Danner, years ago, standing over a table. A child's backpack lay in front of them. The Brighton case, the one that ruined everything. Brooks's voice echoed through the speakers. "We'll report it tomorrow. No one needs to know it was our mistake." Danner felt the blood drain from his face. His chest tightened. That night, the night they'd followed a bad lead, the one that sent the team the wrong direction. He'd buried her, not literally, but with silence. Rachel hadn't been a victim. She'd been investigating them. Then the screen cut again, now showing Brooks, pale and exhausted, staring into the lens. "She found the files, Mike. She found out what we did. I couldn't let her go. And now it's your turn to face it." The TV went black. Behind him, a floorboard creaked. "Alan?" Danner turned, but no one was there, only a faint shadow slipping into the light. He ran outside, flashlight cutting through fog, but the night swallowed everything. In the distance, sirens wailed. Backup was coming. Hours later, when officers arrived, they found the building empty, except for a single Polaroid lying on the table. It showed the same crime board from Danner's office, only this time, his own photograph was pinned in the center. Written beneath it were 3 words in red marker: "You chose silence." Detective Danner resigned the next day. No charges were filed, Brooks was never found, and Achel Keene's body was never recovered. But sometimes, when the night shift settles in at the precinct, officers swear they still hear the faint click of a Polaroid camera in the archives. And every few months, a new photo appears on Danner's old desk, each one showing a different detective, and the same 3 words written beneath: "You chose silence." If you thought this story was chilling, wait until you hear the next one. Because sometimes the worst monsters wear badges, and sometimes they look back at you from the mirror.